Good morning, everyone. This meeting is called to order. Mr. Truman, is anyone signed up for public comment?
Good morning, Commissioners. Les Truman, General Counsel. We have one individual who would like to address the commission when we get to item number 17. That's what we got.
Thank you. Let's take up agenda item 3. No cases to reconsider in agenda item 3. When I consider tax liability cases under agenda item 4, I believe we have 2 tax cases on docket 15 and 2 tax cases on docket 16.
Good morning. Yes, that is correct, Chairman. There are 2 tax liability cases on docket 15 and 2 tax liability cases on docket 17. For the record, Hugh Daniel, Special Program Appeals. The first case is on docket 15 is PD-23-018-0623. Commissioner Esparza.
Agree with the recommendation to deny the motion for reconsideration.
Commissioner Trevino.
Agree with staff's recommendations.
Chairman Daniel.
Disagree with staff recommendation. Grant the motion for reconsideration.
So we have a majority vote at this point, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, Commissioner Esparza. Would you like to revisit?
We're maintaining the recommendation from staff.
Okay. And Chairman Daniel, would you like to dissent?
Yes. Short form dissent.
The second case on docket 15 is TD-24-001-0124. Commissioner Esparza.
Agree with the recommendation from staff.
Commissioner Trevino.
I agree with staff's recommendation.
And Chairman Daniel.
Agree with staff recommendation.
All right, moving on to docket 16. The first case is TD-23-024-0923. Commissioner Esparza.
Agree with the recommendation.
Commissioner Trevino.
I agree with staff's recommendation.
And Chairman Daniel.
Agree with staff recommendation.
All right, the last case, the second one on docket 16 is TD-23-041-1023. Commissioner Esparza.
Agree with staff recommendation.
Commissioner Trevino.
I agree with staff's recommendation.
And Chairman Daniel.
Agree with staff recommendation.
All right, thank you all. That concludes tax liability cases on docket 15 and 16.
All right, there's no fair housing cases. There's no child labor cases. Under agenda item 7, we have no wage claim cases on dockets 15 or 16. Pulled for additional discussion.
Yes, no pulled wage claim cases for docket 15 and 16, and you should have received the short form dissent list for docket 15 and 16.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on dockets 15 and 16.
I second the motion, except for those cases in which I am dissenting, as reflected on wage claim short form dissent list for docket 15 and 16.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I am dissenting, is reflected in wage claim short form dissent list for dockets 15 and 16.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted. We'll now move to agenda item 8, consideration of unemployment insurance cases on docket 15. Please proceed when you're ready.
Case number 303-3430, Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decision is not supportable. The employer had a medical appointment for her daughter that conflicted with the first scheduled AT hearing. It does not matter if the employer forgot about the hearing. She was understandably preoccupied with the medical issue. That constitutes good cause for missing the first hearing. Accordingly, we should reverse the AT decision. The employer had good cause to miss the first hearing and resubmit on the merits of the late protests and chargeback issues. In the alternative, since the employer's appeal includes a credible allegation of non-receipt of the notice of maximum potential chargeback, and explains that the relevant work separations prior to the initial claim was directly related to a pandemic shutdown of the employer's food service business. I would also support holding the employer's protest timely and protecting the employer's account chargeback.
The AT decision is correct. The employer received the AT1 hearing notice, but clearly admitted that they failed to appear because they forgot about the hearing. Therefore, the employer did not establish that they were prevented from participating in the hearing due to circumstances beyond their control. The evidence available at the time of the AT1 establishes that the employer's response to the notice of maximum potential chargeback was late and does not indicate any reason and exception to the timeliness rules is applicable. Affirm the AT, employer did not have good cause for AT1, late employer response, to notice of maximum potential chargeback. Employer's account remains charged.
Employer established good cause for AT1 resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3125943, Commissioner Esparza.
AT decision is not supportable due to misleading and inconsistent information from TWC regarding the need to respond to chargeback notices and to file individual appeals for each determination. The employer's chargeback notice response and its appeal from the chargeback determination should both be considered timely. Concerning the chargeback issue, the employer testified that the claimant quit without notice. Such a resignation would have been disqualifying had it been the last work separation immediately prior to the initial claim. Accordingly, we should reverse the AT decision. The employer filed a timely appeal. The employer filed a timely response to the NMPC and protect the employer's account from chargeback.
The decision is correct. The determination was delivered to the employer's electronic correspondence inbox. The employer filed a late appeal without explaining why their appeal was late. Despite being granted a rehear, in order to further explain the reasons for the late appeal, the employer did not appear for the scheduled hearing. Therefore, the employer has not established any exception to the timeliness rules, and the appeal was properly dismissed as late. Affirm the AT decision. Late employer appeal. Late protest to notice of maximum potential chargeback. Employer's account remains charged.
Timely employer appeal, timely response to the NMPC, no chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3126347, Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decision is not supportable. This case is very similar to the preceding case involving the same employer and the same circumstances relating to the late appeal and the late protest issues. Due to misleading and inconsistent information from TWC regarding the need to the need to respond to chargeback notices and to file individual appeals for each determination, the employer's chargeback notice response and its appeal from the chargeback determination should both be considered timely. Concerning the chargeback issue, the employer testified that the claimant was discharged for mistreatment of a regular guest. Such a work separation would have been disqualifying had it been the last work separation immediately prior to the initial claim. Accordingly, we should reverse the AT decision. The employer filed a timely appeal. The employer filed a timely response to the NMPC and protect the employer's account from chargeback.
The decision is correct. The determination was delivered to the employer's electronic correspondence inbox. The employer filed a late appeal without explaining why their appeal was late. Despite being granted a rehear, in order to further explain the reason for the late appeal, the employer did not appear for the scheduled hearing. Therefore, the employer has not established any exception to the timeliness rules, and the appeal was properly dismissed as late. Affirm the AT decision. Late employer appeal, late protest to notice of maximum potential chargeback. Employer's account remains charged.
Timely employer appeal, timely response to the NMPC, no chargeback.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3311003, Commissioner Trevino.
Based on the evidence obtained at the rehearing, the claimant has established good cause for his failure to appear at AT1. The claimant testified that he did not receive the hearing notice. Since the claimant did not receive the hearing notice, he has established good cause for his failure to appear at the AT1, and the case should be resubmitted for the merits testimony. Grant MR, claimant filed a timely petition to reopen. Claimant established good cause for AT2 and AT1, resubmit.
The commission previously voted to grant the claimant's motion for a rehearing. Next, they did not contest the timeliness of the claimant's petition to reopen or his good cause for missing the AT2 hearing. Concerning good cause for AT1, the claimant's petition to reopen specified that he refused to participate because he believed that the AT recording could affect his political venture. Thereafter, the claimant changed his narrative and stated that he did not remember receiving the AT hearing packet, and finally, that he did not receive it. Since the claimant failed to provide credible and persuasive evidence of non-receipt and failed to establish good cause. Concerning the underlying merits, claimant was separated for excessive tardiness. Since the claimant was aware of the employer's attendance policy, but thereafter violated the employer's rules, the claimant mismanaged his position of employment. As such, we should grant the motion for rehearing. Timely Rule 16 petition to reopen. Claimant established good cause for missing AT2 hearing. Claimant did not establish good cause for missing the AT1 hearing. Misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed, sever adequate employer response.
Grant the MR, timely petition to reopen, claimant established good cause for AT2 and AT1 resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3566544, Commissioner Trevino.
The decision is not correct. Although the claimant filed a required examination after 2 attempts, or failed required examination after 2 attempts, the evidence established that the test was difficult and that the claimant had COVID for several weeks prior to his 2nd attempt, and he was unable to work or study leading up to the exam date. Additionally, the 2nd exam was scheduled 1 day after the claimant finally tested negative and was able to return to the office, and just 2 days after Christmas. The employer denied the claimant's request for an extension due to his illness. Furthermore, the employer kept the claimant on for several more months due to their own business needs and repeatedly misled the claimant about how long he had to try to find another position within the company. Therefore, due to these extenuating circumstances, the claimant's inability to pass the exam did not amount to misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, void chargeback.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant was aware of the employer's condition of continued employment when he was hired. Claimant failed to satisfy the employer's condition. As such, the claimant's actions constitute equivalent of work-connected misconduct. Therefore, affirm the AT decision, misconduct, void the chargeback rule.
Misconduct, void chargeback.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3567587, Commissioner Trevino.
The decision is not correct. The employer discharged the claimant after receiving some complaints about the claimant from other employees. The final incident was an anonymous complaint alleging that the claimant was yelling on the store floor. Another complaint alleged that the claimant used profanity in referring to herself. The claimant denied the alleged behavior under oath, denying that she yelled at anyone or used any profanity. The employer only presented secondhand evidence of the claimant's alleged unprofessional behavior. Therefore, the employer did not meet its burden of establishing that the claimant committed misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer, void adequate response.
The AT decision should be modified. The employer received a complaint that the claimant was yelling at the workplace. As a result, the claimant was discharged. The claimant had been put on a performance improvement plan, so she knew or should have known that her behavior needed to improve. Nonetheless, the claimant failed to improve. As such, preponderance of credible evidence established that the claimant's action constituted work-connected misconduct. We should therefore modify the AT decision, misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed, sever adequate employer response.
Misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed, sever adequate response ruling.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3591594, Commissioner Esparza.
The appeal tribunal decision should be reversed. The claimant was terminated due to the quality of his welds. In addition, the claimant had worked for the employer for over a year before he received a warning for quality reasons. As such, a reasonable conclusion can be reached that the claimant was able to perform the employer's standards for an extended period of time before his performance declined. While the claimant's AT appeal states that he was never shown the welds that bore his stamp, he testified that he did not ask to see the defective welds that the employer was referring to. Because the claimant was able to meet the employer's expectations for an extended period of time, his failure to do so during the final incident after a warning constituted work-connected misconduct. We should therefore reverse the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response. In the alternative, my fellow commissioners are not convinced the employer's appeal to the commission contains evidence that is germane to this case. Accordingly, could also support a vote to rehear this case to allow the employer's documents to be authenticated and admitted into the record for the commission's consideration to rehear.
The AT decision is supportable. The employer discharged the claimant for performance issues. The claimant provided credible firsthand testimony denying the employer's allegations that he was solely responsible for the leaks on the parts that he welded. The employer failed to provide firsthand testimony that the claimant was the only directly responsible for the insufficient welds on those parts. Therefore, the employer failed to establish that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Rehear to admit all of the employer's evidence and to question firsthand witnesses.
We will rehear the case.
Three, 5, 9, 3, 5, 0, 7, Commissioner Esparza.
We should reverse the AT decision. First, the commission should find that section 207-045H of the act does not apply because the employer ratified the job separation from the client company. Concerning the merits, the employer, the only party to attend the AT hearing, specified that the claimant was discharged when he continued to use his cell phone after he was directed to abstain from using his phone during work hours. Although the claimant was aware of the employer's instructions, he continued to use the cell phone and refusal to assist his coworkers with work-related tasks, which constituted work-connected misconduct. As such, we should reverse the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The AT decision is correct. The claimant worked for the temporary help firm, and the employer discharged him when his assignment with the client company ended. The employer presented insufficient evidence to show that the claimant was required to report his availability for reassignment to the employer, or that he was even aware that he was working for a temporary help firm. However, the employer continued to consider the claimant eligible for other potential assignments after his assignment with the client company ended. Therefore, the evidence established that the claimant was separated due to lack of work and not misconduct. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
No misconduct, chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3, 5, 9, 8, 8, 5, 0, Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decision is not supportable. The evidence from both the claimant and the employer showed that the claimant was fired for refusing the employer's reasonable request that he use his personal cell phone for receiving and making work-related calls, and that he sign a reprimand relating to the cell phone issue. There is no evidence that the claimant was treated unfairly with regard to the cell phone issue, and it was reasonable for the employer to expect the supervisor to be reachable during that workday. It does not matter that the employer, during the final attempt to secure his cooperation, failed to expressly tell him that his job was on the line. Any reasonable employee in a claimant's position would have known that such insubordination would lead to dismissal. The claimant's conduct constituted misconduct connected with the work. Accordingly, we should reverse the AT decision. Misconduct, protect the employer's account for reimbursement liability. The employer made an adequate response to the notice of claim.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant was discharged for refusing to sign a warning memo that required him to use his personal cell phone for business purposes because he did not agree with the warning. However, the claimant was not told that he would be discharged if he did not sign the memo, or that signing it was only an acknowledgement receipt of the document. Under commission precedents, in the absence of clear evidence that the claimant understood the consequences of his refusal to sign the reprimand, refusing to sign a reprimand that the claimant disagrees with does not constitute misconduct. Therefore, the claimant was discharged for reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer.
No misconduct, bill reimbursing employer.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3601008, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant was discharged because he failed his Department of Transportation physical, causing him to lose his DOT certification. However, the claimant was allowed to continue working for the employer for almost 2 months after failing his physical prior to being discharged. Therefore, the loss of the claimant's DOT certification was too remote in time from the discharge to be considered misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, void adequate response. In the alternative, as the complainant failed his DOT physical due to his medical condition, I could agree that the claimant's discharge was caused by a medically verifiable illness. Modify the AT, no misconduct, no chargeback, MVI, void adequate response.
We should modify the AT decision. Claimant failed his physical and lost his Department of Transportation certification because he had not used his sleep apnea machine for about 9 months. Claimant did not request accommodation from the employer or his own doctor after he encountered problems using the machine. Because the claimant was informed that he needed to maintain his DOT certification as a condition of employment, his loss of the cert due to his own actions constituted misconduct connected with work. We should modify the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate employer response.
Misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3607052, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is incorrect. The claimant filed a continued claim while being self-employed when she worked for a gig economy employer. There is no separation from employment, and the complainant's continued claim filed on 3/18 of 23 should be voided as a result. Void the continued claim, set aside the previous AT decision, and set aside the job separation and overpayment determinations.
Affirm the AT decision. The claimant quit work for personal reasons. Accordingly, we should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, overpayment of $7,227.
Set aside the AT, void the continued claim, void the overpayment.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir. That was the last case scheduled for docket 15, and you should have received the short form dissent list for docket 15.
I move to accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 15.
I second the motion, except for those cases in which I am dissenting as reflected on the UI short form dissent list for docket 15.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I am dissenting as reflected in the UI short form dissent list for docket 15.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Moving now to docket 16.
Case number 3077182, Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decision should be modified as the chargeback ruling. We agree that the hearing officer's decision that the employer's Rule 16 request was timely and that the employer had good cause to miss the first hearing. On the chargeback issue, the employer gave consistent and credible firsthand testimony that the claimant, who had been hired as an office manager, failed to perform her duties in that position, despite having the ability to do the work. She ignored office protocols, did not hold employees accountable for showing up late, failed to schedule employees, which is the basic function of the office manager, and did not follow the employee handbook. The employer spoke to the claimant about the problems if the claimant continued to fail to follow instructions. This was not a case of mere inability to perform her duties. She could have followed protocols, held employees accountable for targeting their scheduled employees, and followed policies, but failed to do so despite counseling. So under these circumstances, the employer's account should not be charged. Accordingly, we should modify the AT decision. The employer filed a timely Rule 16 request. The employer had good cause to miss the first hearing and protect the employer's account from chargeback.
The AT decision should be affirmed. I agree that the employer's petition to reopen should be deemed timely and that the employer had good cause for missing AT1. As to the issue of chargeback, the claimant was separated from the employer due to her inability to meet the employer's standards during her probationary period and not for any disqualifying reason. Therefore, the employer's account should be charged. Affirm the AT. Employer filed a timely petition to reopen. Employer established good cause for AT1. Charge the employer's account.
Timely petition to reopen. Employer established good cause for AT1, no chargeback.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3529458, Commissioner Esparza.
We should modify the AT decision. First, I agree the claim is valid. Regarding the job separation, the claimant may have had a legitimate complaint about the situation which she characterizes scary and made her feel uncomfortable. However, she did not inform the employer that she felt unsafe until she submitted her resignation and quit effective immediately. Had the employer known about the claimant's worries, the employer would have allowed her to work from home. By quitting without providing the employer an opportunity to remedy her concerns, the claimant quit without good cause connected with the work. Accordingly, we should modify the AT decision that valid claim, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The decision is correct. The claimant quit because she felt unsafe at work after the employer informed her that an individual with a history of violence was stalking and threatening the owner and another employee for personal reasons. The claimant subsequently saw this individual near the workplace, and the employer had not taken actions to protect the workplace, aside from the owner indicating that he was carrying a firearm for protection. Therefore, the claimant had good cause connected with the work to quit due to her reasonable belief that the workplace was unsafe. Affirm the AT, valid claim, no voluntary leaving, chargeback.
Valid claim, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3541359, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant was not admitted to the AT1 hearing because she registered for the hearing 3 minutes late. The claimant had issues with her vision and was not able to read the smaller print on the hearing notice and believed that she needed to participate in the hearing from the TWC office. The claimant reported to her local office at the hearing time, but was delayed in calling due to the office's sign-in procedures. As the claimant made a good faith effort to participate in the hearing, she established good cause for her failure to appear. Reverse the AT, claimant established good cause for AT1, resubmit.
We should affirm the AT decision. Although the claimant received the AT hearing packet, she did not appear because she did not review the instructions for registering and called in late. Furthermore, since the claimant could have reviewed the hearing packet despite her medical ailments and possessed a cell phone to timely call in if she so wished, she did not establish good cause for her non-appearance. Concerning the underlying merits, the claimant was terminated when she became combative toward her supervisor when she attempted to leave work early. Since the claimant was not authorized to leave early, her insubordinate behavior towards her employer when questioned constituted work-connected misconduct. As such, we should affirm the AT decision. The claimant did not establish good cause for missing the AT1 hearing, misconduct.
Claimant established good cause for AT1, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3560109, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not fully supportable. I agree that the claimant had good cause for his failure to appear at AT1. Regarding the job separation, the claimant was discharged for attendance, and the final incident, the claimant's absence from work on 11/3/22 was due to illness. Though the claimant had prior attendance occurrences that were for personal reasons, the claimant was not discharged until after this absence caused by his personal illness. The claimant testified that he would have submitted the medical documentation, but under the employer's policy, medical absences were not excused. Since the claimant was discharged for violating the attendance policy after an absence due to a personal illness, the claimant was discharged for reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. Modify the AT. Claimant had good cause for AT1. No misconduct, no chargeback, MVI, void adequate response.
We should modify the AT decision. First, don't contest the good cause issue. Concerning job separation, employer's policy allowed 5 attendance points in a rolling 6-month period prior to discharge. Although the claimant was allowed to review his attendance infractions upon his 4th infraction point, the claimant failed to make any objections. Thereafter, the claimant continued to incur attendance points and cross the threshold limit for absences. Since the claimant was aware of the employer's policy, but thereafter continued to incur excessive attendance points in violation of the policy, claimant's conduct constituted misconduct connected with the work. As such, we should modify the AT decision. Claimant established good cause for missing the AT1 hearing, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate employer response.
Claimant established good cause for AT1, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate employer response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3561544, Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decision should be modified. I don't contest the good cause issue. As to the job separation, the employer conducted an audit and determined that the claimant had falsified information by using her own number in place of a customer's. The employer's policy states that falsifying records can lead to corrective action, including termination. Accordingly, the claimant's action constituted work-connected misconduct, and we should modify the AT decision. The claimant had good cause for a non-appearance, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate response. In the alternative, Commission should grant a rehearing in this case. There was a lapse of time between the final incident and the claimant's discharge. The employer's testimony does not contain any explanation for the time lapse. As such, we should conduct a rehearing to obtain testimony from the employer as to when it found out that the claim's actions and why there was a delay between the final incident and the job separation. Rehear, please.
The AT decision is not supportable. Regarding the good cause issue, the claimant had been qualified to receive benefits and then returned to work and stopped filing claims before the hearing notice was mailed. So the claimant had no way of knowing that she needed to continue monitoring or to monitor her mail for communication from the Commission. Therefore, the claimant had good cause for her failure to appear at the hearing due to not receiving the hearing packet in a timely manner. Regarding the job separation, the employer accused the claimant of entering her personal phone number into a customer's account in 2019, but provided no specific dates or other identifying information. And the claimant explained that while she was not aware of the specific incident, she may have used her personal phone number to test the new software application. Since the employer did not appear at the AT2 hearing to rebut the claimant's testimony, the employer failed to establish that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT. Claimant had good cause for AT1, no misconduct, chargeback, void adequate response.
Claimant established good cause for AT1, no misconduct, chargeback, set aside adequate response room.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3569775, Commissioner Esparza.
We should reverse the AT decision. Although I empathize with the claimant's health condition, the claimant resigned prior to effectively communicating her medical needs or allowing the employer to engage in the interactive process for finding a suitable work accommodation. Next, although the claimant alleged that she was advised to quit, the claimant's medical documentation did not establish that she was directed to resign prior to quitting. Since the claimant quit without effectively communicating her needs or allowing the employer to remedy any work concerns, her separation was voluntary and without work-connected good cause. As such, we should reverse the AT decision, voluntary leaving, reimbursement, and employer not billed, adequate employer response.
The AT decision is correct. The claimant resigned due to medical reasons. The claimant's doctor recommended that she quit her job because her medical condition made it difficult for her to adequately perform her job duties, and she needed to pursue treatment for her illness. Therefore, the claimant had good cause connected with the work for quitting. Affirm the AT, no voluntary leaving, bill reimbursing employer.
No voluntary leaving, bill reimbursing employer.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3570178, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant resigned after the job he was working on ended on 2/24/23. The claimant was offered additional work with the employer at a job site that was 2 hours away. Since continuing work with the employer would have required the claimant to travel significantly further away, the claimant had good cause connected with the work for quitting. Reverse the AT, no voluntary leaving, chargeback.
We should affirm the AT decision. Although the claimant was aware of the nature of the employer's work, the claimant quit when he refused to accept a new job assignment based on a possible conflict with school. Since the claimant failed to accept further work when continued work was available, claimant's separation was voluntary and without work-connected good cause. As such, we should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
No voluntary leaving, chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3573423, Commissioner Esparza.
We should reverse the AT decision on good cause. The employer had been in a meeting which ran late. As a result, he called in after the scheduled time for the hearing. Commission precedents has established that a party who called in 4 minutes after the start of the hearing was too late to participate. Here, the employer called in only 1 minute after the start time of the hearing, according to TWC records. The employer should have been allowed to participate. Because the employer made a good faith effort to participate and testified that it called in prior to the start time of the hearing, the employer should be deemed to have established good cause for AT1, and the case should be resubmitted for merits.
The AT decision is supportable. Although the employer alleged that they registered prior to the AT1 hearing, they did not have any evidence to support this contention. Rather, commission records show that they registered after the hearing start time and did not provide an explanation for the late registration. Therefore, the employer has not demonstrated good cause for missing AT1. As to the job separation issue, the available evidence indicates that the employer discharged the claimant for a mistake committed by another team member. The claimant was not responsible for the mistake and had no prior warnings. Therefore, it was not shown that the claimant's discharge was for misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, employer did not have good cause for AT1, no misconduct, chargeback.
Employer established good cause for AT1, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3574015, Commissioner Trevino.
The decision is not supportable. The claimant registered for the AT1 hearing 2 minutes after the hearing start time. The claimant testified that she did not receive the hearing notice for the AT1 hearing in the mail, but learned of the scheduled hearing online. The claimant had not received the instructions for registering before the hearing, as she had not received the hearing notice, but still made a good faith effort to participate in the hearing. Therefore, the claimant had good cause for missing AT1, and the case should be resubmitted for merits testimony. Reverse the AT, claimant had good cause for AT1, resubmit.
The AT decision should be affirmed. Regarding good cause, the claimant's testimony was not consistent. Accordingly, she has not rebutted the presumption of receipt and did not have good cause for her non-appearance. As the job separation, the claimant was fired for insubordination toward the owner of the company. The claimant was approached to correct the issue related to her partner, and the claimant refused. Such behavior constituted work-connected misconduct. Should therefore affirm the AT decision. The claimant did not have good cause for her non-appearance. Misconduct, no chargeback.
Claimant established good cause for AT1, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 6855, Commissioner Esparza.
We should reverse the AT decision. Per TWC records, the employer's notice of claim was mailed to an address different from the one noted in the employer's designated address or its address of record. This resulted in the employer's delayed response to the claim. I understand that the notice may have been sent to the location where the claimant last worked. However, we provide employers the ability to designate the address where they would like correspondence mailed in order to ensure that information is sent to and received by the appropriate parties in a timely manner. Had TWC mailed the notice to the address the employer had designated, the employer's response would have been timely. Thus, because the notice was not sent to the employer's chosen address, the employer's response should have been deemed timely and the case resubmitted for merits testimony.
The AT decision is correct. The notice of initial claim was mailed to the employers at the address where the claimant last worked prior to his discharge, which was proper under the commission rules, and was received by the employer at that address. The employer's witness could not provide a reason or no reason for the employer's late response. Since there is no good cause exception to the timeliness rules, the AT decision deeming that the employer's response late should be affirmed. Affirm the AT, late employer protest.
Untimely protest.
Short form sent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3594. I apologize. Case number 3595452, Commissioner Trevino.
AT decision is not supportable. The employer discharged the claimant for alleged unprofessional behavior in a meeting that occurred on 4/10/23. The claimant provided credible and consistent firsthand testimony denying the employer's assertion that she acted in an unprofessional manner towards other employees. The employer failed to provide any firsthand testimony to support their allegations. Therefore, the employer failed to establish that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer.
We should affirm the AT decision. Claimant had a long history of issues with negative communication and interactions with coworkers. Because the claimant continued to engage in similar behavior after prior warnings, she mismanaged her position of employment. We should affirm the AT decision misconduct, reimbursing employer, not bill.
Misconduct, reimbursing employer, not bill.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3604947, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant was discharged from her store when her store failed a safety inspection due to shopping carts blocking an electrical panel. A work crew had performed repairs on the back door, and the claimant informed them that the electrical panels should not be blocked, but had to leave work prior to the work being completed. So when she was not able to monitor whether her instructions were followed. Therefore, there was no evidence that the claimant returned to work prior to the safety inspection to observe that the work crew had blocked the safety panels. As the claimant had received no prior warnings or reprimands, the employer has failed to establish that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, void adequate response.
We should modify the AT decision. Claimant was aware of the safety policy that prohibited electrical panels from being blocked. As store manager, she should have ensured that the policy was always followed, even when a repair crew was working on the back door. Since the policy was violated and the claimant was aware that it could result in termination, disqualification is fully supportable. We should modify the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate response issue.
No misconduct, chargeback, void adequate employer response.
Perform dissent.
Yes, sir. That was the last case pulled for additional discussion on docket 16, and you should have received the short form dissent list for docket 16.
I'll move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 16.
I second the motion, except for those cases which I am dissenting as reflected on UI short form dissent list for docket 16.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I am dissenting is reflected in UI short form dissent list for docket 16.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted. Brings us to the end of agenda items 1 through 8. We'll take a short recess. Here we go. So agenda item 9, board contract years 2024-2025 performance measure.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Mr. Cerna, this is, sorry, for the record, Adam Leonard from Information Innovation and Insight. This item before you today has to do with a charge we were given by a slightly different mix of commissioners, admittedly, to take a look at the performance measures that we use in our system, especially with our local boards. We have developed a set of measures around that and are here to present the recommendations, which is that we would go ahead and implement one this year where it's a very minor tweak, and then introduce the other 4 next year, board contract year 25. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the measures or the proposal.
Any comments or questions?
None here.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
I move we approve the changes to the BCY 2024 and 2025 board performance measures as described in the discussion paper and recommended today by staff.
A second.
Move second, motion carries. Agenda item 10, performance expectation for board contract year 2024.
Again, for the record, Adam Leonard. When we set targets for our local boards, they kind of go through different groupings. So for instance, we do things with the WIOA targets that are negotiated in accordance with statute and done on a biennial basis. And then we have a set of other measures like these that I'm presenting today that may get their targets from the Appropriation Act or from our own kind of analysis of performance and setting recommendations. So before you, we've got 6 targets, methodologies for 6 measures, 3 of them related to our Appropriation Act measures. 1 relating to choices participation that we call full engagement, and our claimant reemployment within 10 weeks. And then also the new measure that you just approved, which is the number of employers receiving Texas Talent Assistance. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the recommendations.
Comments or questions?
None here.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move we approve the BCY 2024 board performance expectations and the associated methodologies as described in the discussion paper and recommended today by staff.
A second.
It's been moved second, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's agenda item 11, selection decisions for AEL core provider requests for applications.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Mr. Cerna. For the record, James Golson, Workforce Development Division. Rider 46 of the General Appropriations Act of the 86th Texas Legislature requires that AEL grant awards be reviewed and approved by TWC's commissioners prior to notification of award to the grant recipient. For your approval this morning, we are bringing forward the selection decision for the Adult Education and Literacy Core Provider RFA, AEFLA Section 231, which supports core AEL service delivery across the state. Staff reviewed 53 eligible applicants and today are recommending 36 as winners for a total award of $72,313,008. Although we would like to note that the award amounts and county coverage could be adjusted during award formation to ensure federally required statewide coverage. Staff are also bringing forward for review and approval the selection decision for AEL core provider AEFLA Section 243, which supports integrated English literacy and civics education for English language learners. Staff reviewed 30 eligible applicants and selected 9 as full grantees for a total award of $7,487,791 with the same caveat for award formation adjustments. And then a final note, staff intends to bring forward 2 more sets of winners for AEL core provider on April 30th. 1 set of 231 winners from our AEL core provider limited counties RFA, and 3 partial 243 awardees from the original composition not presented today. We'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Comments or questions?
None here.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
I move we approve 36 grant awards for Adult Education and Family Literacy Act, Section 231 provider activities totaling $72,313,008 and 9 grant awards for Adult Education and Family Literacy Act, Section 243 provider activities totaling $7,487,791 as described in the discussion paper and recommended today by staff.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded and the motion carries. Mr. Troman, can you do a little research and determine whether the need for the commission to approve the agenda item we just approved is a statutory reason or a regulatory reason or both, and get back to us on that, please?
Yes.
Thank you very much. This is agenda item 12, final rules for 40 Tech Chapter 813 SNAP employment and training.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Cerna. For the record, I'm Joel Mullins with Workforce Development. Before you today for your consideration and adoption are final rule amendments to Chapter 813, the SNAP ENT program on Fiscal Responsibility Act updates. And in an open meeting on January 30th of this year, the Commission approved proposed amendments to TWC's Chapter 813 rules to conform with SNAP provisions of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, revising references to the case management system and updating the allowable activities for able-bodied adults without dependents. The proposed rule amendments were published in the February 16th, 2024 issue of the Texas Register, and no comments were received. Additionally, staff conducted a 4-year rule review of Chapter 813 in accordance with Texas Government Code and determined that the initial reasons for adopting the chapter still exist and the chapter is still needed. Today, staff recommends adopting the amendments to Chapter 813 as provided in your meeting materials. And additionally, staff requests the ability to make minor non-substantive changes to the document to comply with publication requirements of the Texas Register and the Office of the Secretary of State. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Comments or questions?
None here.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move we approve the adoption of amendments to Chapter 813 Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, Employment and Training as recommended today by staff.
I second.
Been moved, second, motion carries. It's agenda item 13, final rules for 40 Tech Chapter 853 Independent Living Services for older individuals who are blind.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Trevino, Commissioner Esparza, and Mr. Cerna. For the record, I'm Rika Weintraub with the Vocational Rehabilitation Division, representing the Older Individuals Who Are Blind program. Commissioners, before you today for your consideration and adoption are final rule amendments to Chapter 853, Independent Living Services for Older Individuals Who Are Blind. In an open meeting on December 13th, the Commission approved proposed amendments to TWC's Chapter 853 rules regarding updating eligibility for the OIB program, clarifying language for consistency purposes, and completing its 4-year rule review. The proposed rule amendments were published in the January 2024 issue of the Texas Register for a 30-day public comment period. No comments were received. Additionally, staff conducted a 4-year rule review of Chapter 853 in accordance with Texas Government Code and determined that the initial reasons for adopting the chapter still exist and that this chapter is still needed. Staff recommends adopting the amendments to Chapter 853. Should the Commission adopt these rules, staff requests the ability to make minor non-substantive changes to the document to comply with publication requirements of the Texas Register and the Office of the Secretary of State. This concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any comments or questions?
None here.
No questions.
It's disappointing. I think she really wanted us to ask some questions. Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move we approve the adoption of amendments to Chapter 853, Independent Living Services for Older Individuals Who Are Blind as recommended today by staff.
My second.
It's been moved to second and motion carries. Thank you. It's agenda item 14, recertifications, community rehabilitation programs to participate in purchasing from people with disabilities program.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mr. Cerna, Juan Garcia with your Voc Rehab Division. This morning for your approval, we have 5 CRPs that are up for recertification for continued participation in the Purchase from People with Disabilities program. All CRPs are paying minimum wage or higher. The CRPs are as follow: Texana Center in Rosenberg, Second Chances in Houston, Rukon Inc. in Huntsville, Goodwill Industries in Houston, and RGG Construction in Weslaco. Staff recommends the recertification of these 5 CRPs as presented. With that, I can answer any questions you might have.
All right, any questions or comments?
None here.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move we approve the recertification of the following community rehabilitation programs for participation in the Purchasing from People with Disabilities program as recommended today by staff. Texana Center, Second Chances, Rukon Incorporated, Goodwill Industries of Houston, and RGG Construction Company.
I second.
It's been moved second and the motion carries. This is agenda item 15, acceptance of donations for Borderplex Child Care Investments Partnership Project.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, and Mr. Cerna. For the record, Allison Wilson with the Child Care and Early Learning Division. Before you today are 4 donations for the Child Care Investments Partnership Program for a Borderplex project focused on expanding access to high-quality childcare in the Alpine region. CCIP allows boards to partner with local donor organizations with an interest in improving the quality of childcare and early learning in their community. Through this initiative, TWC provides a 100% match of cash contributions from local board partners. Funds donated to TWC and accepted by the Commission as CCDF funds allow TWC to leverage the donations for potential drawdown of additional federal CCDF matching funds. TWC grants the donated funds plus TWC's 100% matching contribution to the board for administration of the approved project. Staff recommends the Commission accept the following donations and match agreements as required by CCDF rules. A Brewster County donation of $50,000, City of Alpine donating $25,000, Permian Basin Foundation donating $50,000, and Sul Ross University donating $15,000. And that concludes my remarks. Happy to answer any questions.
Comments or questions?
None here.
Well, I'd like to thank the on behalf of the Workforce Commission, the donations to make this a matching program. I'm sure that money goes a long way out there in the Trans-Pecos area. So I appreciate that and all the work that we're doing to facilitate it. Thank you.
All right, is there a motion?
Chairman, I move we approve the acceptance of donations for the Borderplex Child Care Investments Partnership Project in the total amount of $140,000 from the following partners as described in the discussion paper and recommended today by staff: Brewster County, City of Alpine, Permian Basin Foundation, and Sul Ross University.
My second.
Been moved and seconded. The motion carries. It's agenda item 16, proposed child care statewide initiatives for fiscal year 2025.
Again, for the record, Allison Wilson with Child Care and Early Learning. Today, for your consideration, we are bringing forward several child care initiatives to include in the fiscal year 25 statewide initiatives budget. These proposed initiatives are based on the results of recently solicited stakeholder feedback, a statewide early childhood learning needs assessment, and recent changes to federal rule. We are proposing 5 new statewide initiatives. The first is $3 million for a statewide initiative to provide professional development to child care providers and board staff to better serve children with disabilities, as well as those exhibiting challenging behaviors. The second initiative proposed is $750,000 per year for a child care registered apprenticeship program hub intermediary. The funded entity will support early childhood RAP program development and implementation as a group sponsor for multiple employers. I also want to note on this particular item that there is a technical error in the decision point. We are in fact asking for 750,000, not 750,000 million. So wanted to note that. We have a lot of money, but not that much.
How much is 750,000 billion?
It's a good question.
Is that more or less than 11 billion? We need to know that.
I'll take that back. The third initiative is $25 million for a new child care expansion initiative, or CCEI. Based on the success of the stimulus-funded CCEI and stakeholder input, we propose competitively procuring an entity to administer a new initiative focused on capacity expansion in childcare deserts and for employer site-based expansions. In addition, staff proposes bringing forward an additional discussion paper providing details on the new CCEI program parameters, including the number of expansion projects targeted and the parameters for funding levels of individual awards. The fourth initiative proposed is $150,000 to support an annual board strategic planning meeting on childcare quality improvement. As the Commission considers increasing local board quality improvement funding, this event will support board strategic investment of funding that is responsive to local needs and outcome focused. And then the last and fifth initiative is $2.4 million to support TEA's efforts to examine successful funding models and best practices in the administration of public pre-K dollars for pre-K partnership models. So staff recommends approving these 5 initiatives as outlined in the discussion paper. That concludes my remarks. Happy to answer any questions.
Comments or questions?
No questions.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move we approve the child care statewide initiatives for fiscal year 2025 as described in the discussion paper and recommended today by staff.
I second.
It's been moved to second. The motion carries. It's agenda item 17, draft 2025-2027 Child Care and Development Fund State Plan.
Okay, again, Allison Wilson with Child Care and Early Learning. Today for your consideration, we are bringing forward the draft Texas Child Care and Development Fund State Plan for fiscal years 2025 through 2027. The state plan is the primary means by which the Administration for Children and Families determines state and territory compliance with the requirements of federal law and regulations. Additionally, the plan provides a vehicle for the public to understand the state CCDF program and offer comment for consideration. To inform the development of the draft state plan, staff consulted with the Texas Early Learning Council in an open public meeting, conducted a stakeholder survey, receiving almost 5,500 responses from childcare providers, parents, workforce boards, and other stakeholders. And we also held 5 in-person regional stakeholder meetings across the state and 1 virtual meeting in February. As required by CCDF, a public hearing will be held following a 20-day comment period. The hearing will take place Tuesday, May 7th at 6 p.m. The hearing will be virtual and open to the public. Written comments will also be accepted through May 7th. Staff recommends that the commission approve publication of the draft state plan for public comment. That concludes my remarks. Happy to answer any questions.
Hold on to that thought. We've got a public commenter, one that I know of. Let's take our public comment and then we'll come back. Allison, if you get a second, and we'll ask whatever questions we have.
Ms. Commissioners, so we have Ms. Camargo. You can go ahead, unmute yourself and begin.
Hello, good morning, and I thank you for allowing me the time to speak today. In 2021, House Bill 619 required the state of Texas to create a strategic plan to assess Texas child care sustainability and quality. The plan was first completed and implemented in 2022 for the first round, with the recommendation of $2.29 billion to be delivered to child care centers for sustainability funding. After reviewing the most recent survey results, the top 10 reasons do not include childcare sustainability funding, but rather quality, nor was it included as a selection in the survey. So this kind of skewed the results presented for the state plan. Childcare sustainability funding needs to be considered a major priority as it affects so many of our Texas workforce. With the current plan being presented, the focus is mainly geared towards quality. However, the focus of quality, we must be able to stabilize the industry first. In House Bill 619, Texas required there be a child care sustainability plan put together and considered. I'm asking that 2025-2027 CCDF state plan be revised to include child care sustainability with funding, or at least child care sustainability in some way, shape, form, or fashion. In closing, I would like to reiterate that the plan that is being put in place is well thought out and will be a great addition when the industry can successfully make a push for quality. But I do believe that overall this plan should be focusing to help providers make rates lower and more affordable for families, be able to provide updates to their facilities and new classroom items, open more space for their families we serve, etc. As right now, our rates in general throughout the state of Texas are the highest they've ever been. So sustainability is a question currently for many childcare providers in the state today. So I thank you for allowing me to speak, and I appreciate the time.
Right. Any questions or comments for Allison?
No questions.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move we approve the draft federal fiscal years 2025-2027 Child Care and Development Fund state plan for publication and public comment as recommended today by staff.
I second.
So maybe second, the motion carries. So agenda item 19, board nominations.
Morning, Chairman, Commissioners, and Mr. Serna. For the record, Shanta Williams with the Workforce Development Division. And today for your consideration, we have Workforce Board nominations for Workforce Solutions Borderplex, Capital Area, Heart of Texas, Gulf Coast, Lower Rio Grande Valley, Rural Capital Area, and Texoma. Staff recommends approval on the presented nominees, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Comments or questions?
No questions.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move we approve the local Workforce Development Board member nominees presented today for the following: Workforce Solutions Borderplex, Capital Area, Heart of Texas, Gulf Coast, Lower Rio Grande Valley, Rural Capital Area, and Texoma.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. The motion carries.
Thank you.
And now a legislative report.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Cerna. For the record, Michael Britt, Governmental Relations. Last week, the U.S. House passed H.R. 6655, a Stronger Workforce for America Act. This measure aims to update and make improvements to the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act by strengthening the workforce development system. The bill now moves to the U.S. Senate for their consideration, and the U.S. Senate has not yet announced a timeline for their consideration of the measure. GR is also monitoring 2 federal hearings this week. Today, at 10 a.m., the U.S. House Ways and Means Committee is holding a hearing to discuss the administration's 2024 trade policy agenda. And tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., the U.S. House Appropriations Subcommittee on Labor, Health and Human Services, Education, and Related Agencies is holding a hearing to consider the fiscal year 2025 appropriations request for the U.S. Department of Labor. Finally, last week, Lieutenant Governor Patrick announced Texas Senate Committee interim charges, and a complete list of those interim charges has been provided to your offices. This concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments?
No questions.
No questions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Cerna, is there executive records report?
Not this time, sir. No.
Is there any other order of business stuff for the commission?
No, not here.
No questions.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Chairman, I move we adjourn.
A second motion.
It's been moved seconded to adjourn. We're adjourned.